Hey you, yes you, the one who's been holding it together, but silently wondering how much longer you can keep carrying the weight. The one who smiles in public, but aches in private. The one who's always okay, because it feels easier than trying to explain what's really going on. If you're tired of feeling like you're falling behind, if you're tired of striving, fixing, performing, if you're tired of feeling tired, maybe it's time to stop chasing who you think you should be and start rebuilding who you already are. Because you're not too far gone. You're not broken. You're just tired. And tired doesn't need judgment. It needs kindness. It needs stillness. It needs you coming home to yourself. But how can you come home to yourself when the world keeps pulling you in every direction? They told you success would fix it, so you chased the title, the milestones, the someday. You measured your worth by your output, your value by your visibility, your happiness by how loud your achievements sounded. And still, deep down, it felt hollow, because the truth is, you've been building a life outside yourself, and you've forgotten how to live inside it. Your soul is starving for something quieter, something more rooted, something real. Not more noise, not more hustle, not more of what's not working. What you need is character, the kind you build in silence, the kind that holds you steady in the storm, the kind that no one sees, but you feel. This video isn't about hacks, or high-performance habits, or fixing your life in 5 steps. This is about rebuilding, with care, with presence, with softness. Together, we'll explore 7 quiet traits. Not flashy, not fast, but faithful. The kind of traits that don't just change how you move through the world, but how you carry yourself when no one's watching. Each one is a piece of your foundation, a gentle return to the version of you who knows how to breathe again. So take a breath, let the noise fade, and let's begin the work of coming home to yourself. One quiet, powerful trait at a time. Trait 1. Truth. You can't heal what you pretend isn't broken. Let's slow down for a moment. Not to fix anything, not to figure it all out, just to feel. Because somewhere in your story, beneath the lists, the masks, the busy, you started pretending, and maybe you got good at it. So good, you forgot there was another way. But here's the gentle truth. You don't need to keep pretending you're fine. Not here, not with me, not with yourself. Most of us have learned how to survive by pretending. Pretending we're okay when we're breaking inside. Pretending the ache isn't there because naming it would be too much. Pretending we're strong, not because we are, but because we were never allowed to be soft. The world applauds that, doesn't it? The strong one, the one who never cries, the one who always bounces back. But beneath the applause is exhaustion. Under the smiles is silence. And inside the silence is pain. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And because pretending is not peace. It's self-abandonment with a filter on top. And every time you do it, you get a little further from the version of you that's still waiting to be seen. There's a moment that comes for all of us. Usually in the quiet. Usually when the world stops spinning just long enough for us to hear our own breath. You might be sitting on the edge of your bed. The light outside your window might be fading into blue. Your room is still, but your heart isn't. And something inside you finally whispers, I'm not okay. It's a soft unraveling. It doesn't demand attention, but it also doesn't go away. And in that moment, if you let the truth stay, something sacred happens. You stop performing, and you start coming home. Truth doesn't shame you, freeze you. Let me tell you something no one taught us growing up. There is no shame in not being okay. Shame is what guilt wears when it doesn't know where to go. Tells you you should have it all together. Punishes your softness. It bullies your ache. But truth doesn't judge you. Sits beside you. It holds your hand and says, this is where we begin. Truth says, you're not broken. You're buried. You're not behind. You're overwhelmed. You're not lazy. You're carrying too much alone. And when truth is spoken, even in a whisper, it starts to set you free. Not all at once. Not in a cinematic moment. But piece by piece. There is a cost to perfection. Not just the time you spend curating your image. Not just the energy it takes to hold it all together. The real cost is you, your softness, your realness, your laughter, your tears. Every time you pretend to be perfect, a part of your soul goes quiet. The part that needed comfort. The part that needed rest. The part that just wanted someone to say, "You don't have to try so hard to be loved. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be true." Truth isn't always poetic. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's just a whisper between sobs. But you'll know it when you hear it, because your breath will finally return to your chest. It might sound like, "I don't want to be strong today. I just want to be held. I feel lost, and I don't know how to ask for help. I miss the version of me who used to dream without fear. I don't know who I am without the pressure. I've been waiting for someone to ask me how I really am." And when that truth is spoken, healing doesn't rush in. It waits, patiently, kindly, because healing never forces itself on you. It meets you where you are, honestly. So tonight, when the house is quiet, when the notifications are off, when there's finally enough silence to hear your own heart beating, sit with it, open your journal, or speak into your voice notes, or just sit and breathe with your hand over your chest, and ask, what is one truth I've been too afraid to say? Name it, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts, even if it trembles in your throat, because it doesn't have to be beautiful to be honest, and it doesn't have to be fixed to be felt. Just name it. No judgment, no fixing, just truth. You are allowed to fall apart. You are allowed to rest in the rubble before you rebuild. Truth is the first gentle stone in the foundation of your healing. And you don't have to do it all tonight. You just have to start by being honest with yourself. Because when you stop pretending, you start breathing again. You start returning again. You start rebuilding again. And slowly, your soul begins to exhale. But wait, before we move forward, pause with this question. What would my life look like if I stopped lying to myself? Sit with that. Feel it in your chest. Let the silence respond. Because where truth opens the door, the next trait steps in to rebuild what's been missing. And that next trait is not soft, it's not slow, it's honest, and it starts with your hands. Trait 2, honest work. The soul smiles when the hands are honest. Not all work drains you. Some work rebuilds you. It may not pay the most. It may not go viral. It may not impress a single soul online. But it feels right. In your chest, in your breath, in your bones. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but something inside you settles when you do it. That is honest work, and your soul knows it. We're told to stay busy, to optimize, monetize, scale, grow, and somewhere along the way our hands stopped creating and started scrambling. We forgot what it felt like to work with intention. To wake up and offer something that matters, not for approval, not for applause, but for alignment. And the truth is, you can be incredibly busy and still feel like nothing you're doing really matters. You can fill your schedule and still feel empty, because not all work is honest. Some work is performance. Some work is distraction. Some work is survival. But honest work, it nourishes you too. Think back, not far, just to a moment when you were fully immersed in what you were doing. You lost track of time. You weren't thinking about likes. You weren't worried about how it looked. Maybe you were writing. Maybe you were cleaning with music playing. Maybe you were fixing something. Maybe you were simply listening, being. That moment, quiet, almost invisible, was you returning to yourself. That was honest work. Work that feels like breath instead of burnout. And your body knew the difference. We don't just work for money anymore. We work for attention, for validation, for proof that we matter. So we post, we polish, we brand ourselves, we curate effort into aesthetic. We turn meaning into metrics. But when the performance ends, when the screen goes dark, we're left with a quiet question. Did that actually feel like me? And if the answer is no, it doesn't matter how good it looked. Because what you're craving isn't just success, it's substance. Honest work isn't always exciting. It's not always romantic or inspiring. Sometimes it's mundane. Sometimes it's routine. But it always feels anchored. Because you're not doing it to chase identity. You're doing it to return to it. There's peace in sweeping a floor when your mind is racing. There's calm in writing one honest sentence after days of doubt. There's healing in offering something to the world. Not because it's perfect, but because it's true. Honest work reminds you, I am still here. I still have something to give. I don't need to prove myself. Just show up fully. This part is important. Your worth isn't tied to whether your work becomes a product. You don't have to sell it to justify doing it. You don't have to explain it to validate why it matters. You don't have to make it impressive to make it real. Some of the most soul-fulfilling work is quiet. It happens in the kitchen, at your desk, with your hands in the dirt, with your arms around someone who needs you. It's the kind of work that doesn't end in applause, but in peace. When your work is honest, something comes back to you. Not in paycheck form, not in followers or praise, but in energy, in clarity, in trust. You stop doubting your value. You stop chasing empty affirmations. You stop outsourcing your identity. Because honest work gives you something deeper than recognition. It gives you rootedness. It says, I'm still capable. I still care. I still believe in something good. And when the world feels overwhelming, that rootedness matters more than ever. So today, take a small step toward honest work. Not the kind that makes you look good, the kind that makes you feel real. Ask yourself, what kind of work makes me feel grounded? Not just busy? Then do one small version of it. It might be writing a page that no one sees, cleaning one corner of your home with care, sending a kind message with no agenda, sitting with your thoughts and naming how you really feel, making something with your hands, a drawing, a meal, a moment. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to be honest. You don't need to hustle your way back to wholeness. You don't need to earn your peace. You rebuild your life, one honest act at a time. Work that aligns. Work that quiets. Work that reconnects you with the part of yourself you abandoned to survive. And when you string together those acts slowly, gently, you start to remember who you were before the pressure, before you had something to prove, before the noise, before the burnout. And maybe, just maybe, you start to believe in your enoughness again. But wait, you've remembered how to tell the truth. You've taken one small, sacred step through your work. But now comes the test. What happens when everything around you moves faster than your spirit can keep up? When life demands more than you have to give? When your strength runs out? You'll need something deeper, something rooted, something brave. Trait 3. Courage. Fear will wait, but life won't. You know that feeling. The pause before you speak the truth. The tightness in your chest before you try something new. The moment right before you say yes to change. And fear steps in with all its reasons to run. It's not loud, that fear. Not always. Sometimes it just sounds like, what if you fail? What if they laugh? What if this isn't the right time? So you stay still. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much. And fear feels safer than movement. Let's get this straight. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is your brain trying to protect you. It remembers the fall, the heartbreak, the rejection. It's not trying to ruin you. It's trying to keep you from hurting again. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need. But sometimes, that same fear becomes a prison. Not a physical one, an emotional one. And the bars? They're made of what ifs. What if I'm not enough? What if it's too late? What if I'm wrong again? But here's the thing. You don't need to destroy fear to move forward. You just need to stop letting it drive. We think of courage as epic. Running into burning buildings. Quitting your job in a blaze of glory. Telling the world your truth in one powerful speech. But real courage is often quiet. It's making that doctor's appointment. It's starting the email. It's getting out of bed after 3 days of numbness. It's asking for help and not apologizing for it. Courage is doing the smallest thing that fear told you not to. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. There's a voice in your head. You know the one that says, "You're not ready. You'll embarrass yourself. You'll disappoint people." But here's the question. How much longer will you let that voice speak for you? How many dreams have you delayed waiting to feel brave? How many opportunities have you watched pass by because you were waiting for permission? You don't need more time. You need to stop waiting for fear to leave the room before you move. Because courage doesn't wait for fear to disappear. It walks anyway. Comfort feels good for a while, but eventually it becomes a cage. Do you stop applying for things you want? Do you stop expressing how you feel? Do you shrink around people you love? Do you stop growing and start disappearing? And deep down, something aches. Because you know you were made for more than safety. You were made for movement, even if it's slow, even if it's shaky, even if no one claps when you do it. You don't need to leap. Let's be honest, most of us won't. We're too tired, too scared, too unsure. But you can still step. One small move, one honest conversation, one brave reply, one moment where you don't let fear win. That's enough, because momentum doesn't start with confidence. It starts with willingness. Try this. Close your eyes. Place your hand on your chest. Breathe. Now ask yourself, what is one thing I would do today if fear wasn't in the room? Just one. Name it. Then do the smallest version of that thing. If fear says, you can't speak your truth, write it in your journal first. If fear says, you can't go back to school, start by researching one course. If fear says, you'll fail again, try anyway, not to succeed, but to remember what trying feels like. Because effort is how you rebuild trust with yourself. And trust is louder than fear. You don't need to feel brave to be brave. You just have to stop waiting for fear to leave before you begin. Because fear will wait forever if you let it, but life won't. And every day you delay, the version of you that's waiting on the other side of courage waits too. She's not perfect. She's not fearless, but she's free. But wait, you've spoken the truth. You've taken a brave step. But now comes the part no one talks about. What happens when the results don't show up right away? When the effort is there, but the progress is invisible. When you've done the work, and it still feels like you're standing still. The brave don't just need courage. They need something stronger, something slower, something that whispers, keep going, even now, especially now. Trait 4, perseverance. The storm isn't the end. It's part of the rebuilding. There's something sacred about showing up when everything in you wants to give up, when the spark fades, when the progress stalls, when the things you hoped would change don't. It's in those moments, the dull, invisible ones, that perseverance begins. Not in triumph, not in celebration, but in that aching middle, where you're not who you used to be, but not yet who you're becoming. That quiet, uncertain place, that's where the real rebuilding happens. There's a special kind of pain that lives in the waiting. You've been doing the work. You've been gentle, brave, consistent, but nothing seems to be happening. You go to therapy but still feel heavy. Do you apply for jobs, but the emails stay silent? Do you speak your truth but feel unheard? Do you try to rest, but the anxiety doesn't leave? And slowly, doubt creeps in. Is this even working? What's the point of trying so hard if nothing's changing? Maybe I'm just not built for this. But here's the truth. Progress is not always visible, but it's still happening. When you plant a seed, nothing blooms the next day. For weeks, sometimes months, it looks like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, something sacred is unfolding. The roots are reaching. The soil is shifting. The seed is strengthening quietly. That's you right now. It might not look like you're healing. It might not feel like you're growing. But every time you get back up, take a deep breath, choose to stay, when it would be easier to leave, you're laying roots, you're anchoring, you're becoming unshakable, even if you don't realize it yet. Perseverance doesn't mean never getting tired. It means resting without quitting. You're allowed to feel frustrated. You're allowed to feel unmotivated. You're allowed to say, I don't want to do this today. That doesn't mean you're failing. That means you're human. And some days, showing up for 5 minutes is more courageous than pushing through for 5 hours. You're not weak for needing breaks. You're wise for taking them. Perseverance isn't about force. It's about returning, gently, repeatedly, and with compassion. There are victories you'll never get credit for. The text you didn't send when you were angry. The meal you made even though your appetite was gone. The social event you skipped to protect your peace. The alarm you didn't snooze even though your body begged for 1 more hour. The way you kept breathing when you wanted to shut everything down. No one sees these moments. No one claps. There are no trophies for this kind of quiet strength. But your soul remembers. These are the bricks of your foundation. The proof that you're rebuilding even when the world can't see it yet. Maybe you've had to begin again, more than once. Maybe you're on your 3rd, 4th, 5th attempt to heal, to quit, to rebuild. And maybe part of you wonders, does it even count anymore? Yes, because every time you start again, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from wisdom, from resilience, from lessons earned in silence and sweat. You're not back at 0. You're back with more of yourself intact. Today, take a breath, a long, full breath. Place your hand on your chest and say out loud, I don't have to rush. I don't have to finish today. I just have to keep going gently. Then ask, what is one thing I walked away from that I can return to now without shame? Maybe it's a journal you stopped writing in, a goal you buried, a habit you dropped. Pick it back up, not to be perfect, just to remind yourself, I still believe in me, even if it's quietly. Here's the truth people don't say out loud. The ones who make it through, they're not the most gifted, not the loudest, not the most confident. They're the ones who didn't stop. They kept showing up, kept breathing through the dark, kept moving even when their legs were shaking. And that can be you. You don't need to do more. You just need to not disappear from yourself. Even when it's slow, even when it's hard, especially then. But wait, you've endured. You've returned. You've watered seeds that haven't yet broken the soil. But now comes the deepest challenge yet. The waiting, the slowness, the days that don't feel productive, the goals that take longer than you planned, the progress that doesn't post well. In this space, perseverance alone won't be enough. You'll need something softer, something deeper, something that teaches you to trust the slow work of becoming. Trait 5. Patience. Not everything blooms in the same season. What if your breakthrough is still on the way? What if it's taking longer not because you're behind, but because something deeper is being prepared? In a world obsessed with speed, patience feels like weakness, but it's not. Patience is a strength that whispers, I trust the process, even when I can't see the progress. Let's be honest. Slow is frustrating. When you've been showing up, doing the work, hoping for change, and still nothing moves. It feels like you're frozen in place while everyone else is sprinting ahead. Their posts say CEO at 24. Their captions say, finally found my person. Their bodies, their homes, their timelines, all seem ahead of yours. And suddenly, your progress feels like an insult. But what if slow isn't punishment? What if it's preparation? What if where you are now is exactly where you're supposed to be? Nature never rushes, and yet it gets everything done. A seed can spend months underground, stretching, cracking, deepening its roots, before anyone sees a single green shoot. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But inside, a revolution is unfolding. That's your life right now. You might not see it. You might not feel it. But something inside you is shifting. The habits you're building, the thoughts you're unlearning, the boundaries you're setting, they are the roots. And when the time is right, you'll rise. One of the most painful beliefs you'll carry is, I should be further by now. By whose rules? By whose calendar? Some of the deepest pain we experience doesn't come from our truth. It comes from inherited timelines. Somewhere along the way, we absorbed silent rules. A graduate by 22. Be successful by 25. Find your person by 30. Heal completely in 3 months. Move on faster. And when our lives don't fit the script, we feel broken. But here's the truth. There is no deadline on your becoming. No expiration date on healing. No too late for peace. You are not a project behind schedule. You are a soul unfolding on time. Waiting is not wasting. When done with intention, waiting becomes sacred. It's choosing stillness without guilt. It's trusting what's unseen. It's saying, I don't have what I want yet, and that's okay. It's checking your worth not by what you've produced, but by the depth of your presence. It's remembering the richest things in life take time. The oak tree, the loyal friend, the inner peace that doesn't collapse under pressure. Those things don't come in a hurry, and you don't have to either. Patience today might look like sitting in silence when your instinct is to distract. Saying, not yet, instead of forcing a yes. Watching someone else rise without turning it into your shame. Trusting that your slower path is still sacred. A breathing when your nervous system begs you to rush. These don't look like big achievements, but they are. They are revolutions in slow motion. Because choosing not to rush, in a world that glorifies speed, is an act of rebellion. We call it a delay. But what if it's protection? What if you're not ready? Not because you're unworthy, but because life is still making space for the version of you who can carry what's coming. What if this slower season is giving you the strength to hold what you once would have dropped? What if this wait is building your capacity? Sometimes we ask for things that we're not yet equipped to sustain, and grace holds them back until we're strong enough. That's not punishment. That's love disguised as slowness. Today, choose presence over pressure. Choose to be here, even if here isn't where you thought you'd be. Light a candle. Breathe in for 4 counts. Exhale for 6. Place your hand over your heart and say, even if I'm still waiting, I'm still growing. Even if it's slow, it's still real. Even if I can't see the bloom, I trust the roots. Then do one thing with intention, not with urgency, not with panic, but with presence. Maybe it's folding your laundry slowly. Maybe it's replying to one message with full attention. Maybe it's sipping your tea without reaching for your phone. Let it be enough. Because when you learn to slow down without shame, you stop racing toward a version of life that isn't even yours. Patience isn't about passivity. It's about deep trust. The kind of trust that says, even if it takes time, it will still be mine. Even if the world moves fast, I can move slow. Even if I feel behind, I am on time for me. You're not waiting for life to start. You're learning how to be with yourself while it unfolds. And that is more beautiful than anything you could rush. But wait, you've stopped rushing. You've embraced the stillness. You've made peace with the process. But soon life will ask something harder. Not just to wait, but to stay grounded even when things go well. To rise without ego. To succeed without arrogance. To grow without forgetting your soul. In that moment, you won't need more drive. You'll need something quieter. Something rarer. Trait 6. Humility. It's not about shrinking. It's about remembering who you're not. We often confuse humility with self-erasure. We think it means becoming small, staying silent, fading into the background. But true humility isn't about making yourself less. It's about letting go of the need to be more than you really are. It's not weakness. It's clarity. It's not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less often. It's a posture, presence, a quiet knowing that you don't have to be everything. To mean something, ego loves to be in control. It needs to be seen, needs to be right, needs to be needed. And the world feeds it. Build your brand. Dominate the room. Always know your worth. Never let them see you doubt. But ego is always hungry. No matter how much you feed it, it whispers, you're still not enough. Humility doesn't feed the ego, it frees you from it, because humility says, I don't have to be the best, I just have to be true. We live in a culture where knowing everything is currency. We're praised for certainty, rewarded for confidence even when it's hollow. But there is deep strength in saying, I'm still learning. I could be wrong. Tell me more. Humility opens doors that pride keeps locked. It makes room for questions, for growth, for real connection, because the truth is no one knows everything, but not everyone is brave enough to admit it. Ego separates. It builds walls. It says, I'm better than you. I've got it figured out. I don't need anyone. But humility builds bridges. It says, we're all human. We're all in process. We're more alike than we think. It softens the space between you and others. It allows conversations to be messy, creates space for compassion to grow. You don't connect through perfection. You connect through presence. And presence requires humility. You know that tightness in your shoulders? That pressure to be on all the time? That voice that says, don't let them see you slip? That's ego. But humility feels like a deep breath, like taking the armor off, like no longer needing to impress, perform, or prove. It's the peace that comes when you remember, I'm allowed to be a person, not a persona. And when you give yourself that grace, you naturally begin to give it to others. Humility is admitting when you're wrong without adding a justification, celebrating someone else's success, even when you feel behind, saying, I don't know, and being curious instead of defensive, letting someone else be the expert without feeling threatened, being teachable, even after you've grown. It's not self-deprecating, it's not insecure, it's not small, it's grounded, centered, clear. Humility is knowing who you are, without needing everyone else to agree. You don't need to shrink to be humble. You don't need to silence your gifts, or pretend you don't shine. Humility doesn't ask you to hide your light. It simply reminds you, you're not the source of it. You're the vessel. You can be powerful and humble, confident and curious, strong and soft. You can take up space, without believing the room revolves around you. That's the balance. That's the beauty. Today, ask yourself, where am I still trying to prove something? To your boss? To your parent? To your past self? And then ask, what would it feel like to stop? Write the answer. Let it come freely. No edits. No filters. Then choose one area to soften. Let someone else speak. Ask for help without apologizing. Say, I was wrong, and leave it at that. Celebrate someone else without making it about you. Not to become smaller, but to become more open. Because when the need to prove dissolves, the soul can breathe again. You're not the expert on everything. You're not the hero of every room. You don't need to win every conversation. And thank God for that. Because the truth is, you don't need to know it all. You just need to keep learning. You don't need to be the most impressive. You just need to be real. And the people you're meant to walk with, they're not looking for perfect. They're looking for present. Let humility lead, and watch the walls fall. But wait, you've let go of needing to be right. You've softened your grip. You've remembered that the goal isn't status, it's sincerity. But now, a new whisper rises. A question, not from your ego, but from your soul. What if what I have right now is already enough? Not when you get more. Not when you finally arrive. Not when everyone claps. But now, can you feel full in the unfinished? Trait 7. Contentment. Enough isn't a destination. It's a decision. There is a kind of peace the world won't teach you. It won't trend. It won't win awards. It won't look impressive online. But it heals you. It's soft. It's slow. And it begins with this whisper. This moment, right here, is enough. That's contentment. Not the loud joy, not the high achievement, but the quiet exhale that says, I don't need more to feel whole. We're taught to chase. From childhood, the script was handed to us. Be more, earn more, achieve more, impress more. And maybe you listened, you built, You climbed. You pushed. You collected shiny things, degrees, promotions, compliments, milestones. And maybe it worked for a while. But one night, you lay in bed, full on the outside, empty on the inside. And you realize wanting more is a hunger that never ends. Because contentment doesn't come from reaching the top. It comes from learning to sit with what is and see its beauty. The ancient book says, "Godliness with contentment is great gain." How often have you said, "I'll be happy when I lose the weight, when I find the one, when I move out, when I make 6 figures, when they finally see my worth." But every time you reach the when, the goalpost moves, and so you keep running, chasing a peace that was never meant to be earned. But what if peace wasn't later? What if it was now? What if happiness isn't about having it all, but about finally not needing it all? Contentment lives in places you've been taught to ignore. In the way the light pours through your window in the morning. In the way your coffee warms your hands. In the silence between notifications. In the exhale after a long day. It lives in the ordinary, the slow, the soft, but you have to stop to notice it. And in a world addicted to motion, stopping feels like failure, but it's not. Stopping is how you see again, and seeing is where gratitude begins. Contentment is not the end of growth. It's the end of desperation. The saying, "I still have dreams, but I don't hate myself while I wait for them." It's choosing to enjoy what you already have, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. It's walking through your day without rushing to the next one. It's cooking a meal without needing to post it. It's sitting with a friend without checking the clock. It's breathing not to calm down, but because you can. That's not laziness. That's presence. I'm okay with where I am, even as I grow. Today doesn't have to be extraordinary to be meaningful. I choose to see what's here, not just what's missing. This moment doesn't need to impress anyone. Peace isn't later, it's now. These aren't affirmations, they're revolutions. Because in a world that monetizes your insecurity, choosing to feel whole right now, that's power. Take a moment, right now. Close your eyes, hand over heart. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Now ask, what in my life already feels like enough? Could be your morning walk, your favorite playlist, a quiet corner of your home, the way you're learning to speak to yourself with more softness. Write it down, feel it, and then, when the voice returns, the one that says, "You should be doing more," answer it with stillness, answer it with presence, answer it with a soft smile and say, "More isn't always better. Sometimes more is just louder." You don't have to keep reaching. You don't have to keep performing. Keep chasing. Keep proving. You can stop, right here, right now, and let your shoulders drop. Let your breath deepen. Let your spirit rest. Because what if this life, this imperfect, unfinished, evolving life, already contains enough light to soften your soul? What if the person you are, right now, is already enough? Not because you've done everything, but because you finally stopped trying to be everything. Contentment isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a decision you remake, again and again in ordinary moments. To slow down, to see, to savor, to say thank you. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are not late. You are living fully, deeply right here. And if you can choose to see what you have, you'll stop being ruled by what you don't. Truth gave you your breath back. Honest work grounded you. Courage moved you. Perseverance kept you. Patience slowed you. Humility softened you. And now, contentment brings you home. This is the life you're rebuilding. Not loud, not perfect, but whole. And the most beautiful part? You're not performing it. You're living it, quietly, faithfully, one breath at a time. You don't need to rush your way to peace. You don't need to fix every flaw to feel worthy. You don't need to do more to deserve rest. What you need is space. Space to feel. Space to breathe. Space to return to yourself without judgment. Maybe you were taught to hide your softness, to hustle through pain, to wear strength like armor. But you're allowed to do it differently now. You're allowed to rebuild gently. And that choice, that shift, is where your power begins. Picture yourself 6 months from now. Your pace is slower. Your smile is softer. You no longer wake up with a clenched jaw or a racing mind. The mornings are still imperfect, but they're no longer unbearable. There is light in your room. There is calm in your steps. And most of all, there is peace in your own company. Not because everything changed, but because you did. You stopped trying to outrun yourself, and you started listening instead. That's not just healing. That's homecoming. If this spoke to something quiet in you, don't rush to apply it all. Pick one moment, one breath, one trait, and let that be enough. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. And I'm proud of you for even listening this far. Let me know in the comments which of these traits are you rebuilding right now. If you felt seen here, you're welcome to subscribe. This is a space for soft growth, slow healing, and honest beginnings. Together, we're not chasing the life we think we're supposed to live. We're gently becoming the person we were always meant to be.